Hello, welcome everybody as you're joining us. We'll get underway in a few minutes. We're just waiting for everybody who's in the waiting room to come in. So we'll give it a minute or two, and then we'll get started. But great to see so many friends and new faces as well. So are we ready to start, do you think? I'm just looking at my team here. Well, it gives me such great pleasure to welcome everybody to the launch of Despite Extractivism. Just a quick starter by saying hello from the Extracting Us collective. Alice Owen, Siti Maimuna, Deanne Ekawati unfortunately can't join us, but she's here in spirit, I'm sure. Ilona Hoover, Selena Lowe, and myself, I'm Becky Elmhurst, and together we're welcoming you to the launch of Despite Extractivism. And this is very much a space for sharing and connecting creative engagements around extractivism. And where through this launch and through the exhibition and the events that will follow, we aim to explore the ways in which care, creativity, community persist, exist and resist despite or because of extractivism. So we welcome and thank our contributors as well, and you'll hear more about them and their work shortly. So researchers, activists, environmental advocacy practitioners and artists, a real range here who are here to share and speak about their work. Just to start by saying that we're gathering here under the umbrella of feminist political ecology, and we see this as a sort of network of learners with a shared ethical orientation towards environmental feminisms and the kinds of questions and ways of relating, researching that these have inspired. And as we continue to learn together, we're going to be engaging and reflecting on these through the exhibition and related events. So I want to also stay before we start, just a huge thank you to our partners for providing financial support, practical and scholarly care and solidarity through the EU-funded Innovative Training Network on Wellbeing, Ecology, Gender and Community, WeGo. You might hear us refer to WeGo a few times. Onca Gallery in Brighton, and the Centre for Spatial, Environmental and Cultural Politics at the University of Brighton in the UK. And all along, these networks of friends have supported and worked very much directly with the work that we've been doing through Despite Extractivism and Extracting Us before that. I just want to give you a brief outline of the meeting before we get underway. We're going to start with a short sort of introduction, talking about giving a little bit of a sort of about the exhibition themes, which I'll hand over to Alice to do that. And then after that, Mai will share with you a little bit about the Extracting Us story, which also provides some context for these themes and how we've got to the point where we are right now and where we're sort of going from there on. And then we get to the main part, the exciting part, which is a guided tour of the exhibition, an opportunity to have a look at the contributions and meet the contributors and for them to say a little bit about their work. And given the kind of challenges of doing many of these sorts of things online, what we try to do through the exhibition is also kind of recreate a bit of a sense of arriving at an exhibition. And so alongside that, we want to show you some other parts of the website where we've curated a reading room for further resources and blog posts, etc., and also a connections room where more on those later. As we go along, we'd really encourage everybody to kind of add to the chat. what would be really nice would be to get a sense of who's here, where you're from. And so if you want to add a little bit about yourself in the chat, that would be great. We'll also be using the chat for any questions or comments or thoughts and reflections about the exhibition and the launch itself. Just to make sure that everyone's aware that this is being recorded as something that we can then share and keep as a sort of as something that we can then publish on the exhibition website in due course. So just so that you're aware of that. And then just in terms of sort of practicalities, it might be useful because we'll be doing some screen sharing for you to use the Zoom on the speaker setting rather than the gallery setting once we get underway. So thanks very much, and I'm going to hand over now to Alice, who will give us a little bit of a sort of an introduction to the themes of the exhibition. Thank you, Alice.
Thanks so much, Becky, and thanks everyone for being here. Yeah, we're super excited to launch Despite Extractivism today. The exhibition website has just gone live, which is really exciting, so you can explore it, but yeah, we're looking forward to showing you around. So in Despite Extractivism, we've got 12 artists, activists, academics, all responding to these very complicated set of ideas contained in these two words, despite extractivism, and each of those has so much packed in within them that I'll try and unpack a little bit for you now. But that's also sort of the point of the exhibition as well, is to keep on questioning what these things are. Yeah, we've been thinking a lot about these as we've been curating the exhibitions, first in sort of sending out the invitations, then also as we've been seeing the works come in and how they respond to these ideas. So let's start with extractivism. Yeah, what is extractivism? If you see other sort of representations of extractivism, or maybe you already have an image in your mind of what that looks like, you often see these sort of landscapes which have been devastated. Large-scale mining is often very spectacular, sometimes devoid of sort of the more human stories and the more sort of everyday relatable scales about thinking what extraction is. On the other hand, there are also lots of stories out there about the sort of injustices of extraction, of environmental injustices, sort of dispossession, contamination, death, violence, all these really horrible things. But what these tend to do is sort of frame the people involved in the wrong side of extractivism as victims. And this is something that we've found in our previous exhibitions, which Mai's going to talk to you about next. It's not always the case. They're not always victims. There's often a lot of agency and often a lot of ways of relating to each other and to the natural world, which don't actually look anything like extractivism, but might look more like care or reciprocity or responsibility. And this is something that we found in our previous exhibitions. Sometimes it can be really surprising that in these places where there is this vast sort of extractive violence, there are also these alternatives sort of emerging or carry on regardless. And that's sort of where the despite comes in. And one way we've been thinking about this, we're trying to really pin down what is it we're trying to get at with despite extractivism. And the sort of visual image that we're coming back to is this one of a weed, perhaps a dandelion, growing through the cracks in some concrete. So if extractivism is this concrete, it might seem really strong, hard to crack, hard to penetrate, hard to destroy or imagine an alternative to. And yet somehow something gets through, and it might just start off as a seed, but it can find a little way in, it can push a crack open. And actually it was there all along. And that's sort of the idea that we're playing with it. There are alternatives, that extractivism isn't necessarily everywhere. There are extractive ways of being in the world and relating to each other and to the natural world, and of even imagining what the natural world is. For instance, thinking of the landscape just as a resource that's there for accumulation, something to be dominated or possessed or there for profit. Yeah, there are other possibilities. So in this exhibition, we're looking at what those possibilities are, not only from these extractive places, but also in the ways that artists respond to these, and how sort of care and creativity can question, subvert, and resist the violent logics and impacts of extractivism. So we've got a few sort of questions which are guiding the exhibition. These are: how do communities and creatives cultivate care for nature and for each other despite extractivism? How can sites of extraction be a fertile ground for alternatives? How do artistic interventions help foster new sensibilities and solidarities with distant extractive contexts? And like weeds growing through the cracks in concrete, and in their flourishing, slowly forcing the cracks to widen, how do the artworks brought together in Despite Extractivism suggest other ways of being in the world? So it's really important that we're driven by questions rather than answers in a way. And as you'll see as you explore the exhibition, and also in our accompanying event series, we're really looking to sort of blow these questions open and see what we can explore together. And it's all about sort of collective learning and trying to understand both extractivism and its alternatives. So I'm going to pass over now to Mai, who's going to share a little bit more about the context of this exhibition, our backstory as a collective. Thanks, Mai.
Thanks, Alice and Becky. Yeah, how do we come to Despite Extractivism? It's actually starting from Brighton, when we met together with Elona also. Then we start to have conversation about what extractives actually and what care. As activists who has background on the mining and kind of that, is difficult for me to imagining how care in the extractive landscapes kind of that. Then we start with the first exhibition, which is really like single topics of from East Kalimantan. We call Extracting Us, looking differently, feminism, politics, and coal extraction, which is collaboration also with ONCA. And it's kind of the process of learning together and growing together to understand and opening new space about understanding extractive, but also care. So then bring us to have a second exhibition. And we're really happy that there is 13 contributors joins for the second exhibition, which is then we try to kind of offering connection, intersection, and ideas to nurture activism, creative engagement, and research on the feminist political ecology and extractivism. So some of them is here also and join us for the third exhibition. Thank you for that. But as usual exhibition, maybe people imagining like, we have like professional artists and kind of that. We agree in the beginning that this exhibition, it will kind of more inclusive, not we're not kind of it makes it's not like kind of professional artist, but also scholar activists who the contributor also engage as a work, but also personal reflection and reflection with others as a way for learning and work for the community and campaigning for the environmental justice. So then we establish kind of our curatorial principle, and practices are informed by what Becky mentioned in the beginning, feminist political ecology, as a strand of environmental feminism rooted in political economy, ecology, and feminist activism. We recognize the everyday and embodied experiences of people which situated within the and relate to specific ecologies, include the question of care and social reproduction and the spaces and relation through which these are achieved. But also bring a commitment to a multi-scale analysis to show how the everyday is shaped or restricted by decision at wider scale that devalue and erase health and reciprocal relation between people and the ecologies that support life. So FPE help us to understand on how the extractivism as an expression of power operates through and reinforce the intersecting structure of coloniality, race, class, gender, age, and ability. So we invite the despite extractivism contributor to consider how their work can follow our guiding principle on the curatorial principle. First is bring together artistic and creative contributions that explore everyday community experiences of an response to extractivism, and or engage in ongoing conversation around extractivism, communities, and care across various forms and registers. It includes core objective. First is to challenge North-South and producer-consumer relation narrative on extractivism. And then to hear perspective from those most affected, whilst protecting the safety of those speaking out against powerful industries and their political supporters. And also to invite contributors, curators, and audiences later. That's why we also provide the connection in our Despite Extractivism website. To make connection and develop action of solidarity and resistance across countries and continents. The third is the exhibition thinks about the extractivism and care in terms of materials from and of the earth and considers the experiences of human and the rest of the nature world. The fourth is the exhibition includes narratives of resistance where possible or relevance and avoids relying on pathos that might develop an us or them feeling. The exhibition also foregrounds work that avoids spectacularized or distant kinds of aesthetics. And the last is the exhibition juxtaposes work with an openness to building connections between contribution and the extractive context that each is engaged with. So follow these curatorial principles, we try to really work carefully. That's why it's like expands 6 months to prepare. Thank you, Selina, for have patience with us to follow our tones. So that's why we work as participative as possible, including the collaboration is a continuity works. That's why we invite the contributors from a previous exhibition to continuing thinking together with us, and the possibility maybe bring this as a writing letter. We will see about that. And also like kind of to give more time for the contributor. It's kind of more flexible compared with my style in Indonesian work. And also the consultation on the serial event that will help during the exhibition. We will have like kind of serial of a webinar. So we also consult with the contributor if they're happy with that, or they have kind of input of or whatever. Thank you, Alice. I hope it's enough. I pass to Becky, no?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mai. We're now going to turn to the exhibition now, and to actually make a visit to all of the different contributions. And I'm going to hand over to Alice, who will be leading us through the exhibition and also introducing the contributors as in turn, in no specific order. It's very important that you know that. We're not at this point making connections, but we will be.
Great, so I'm going to share my screen with you and take you for the first sneak peek of the exhibition. Hopefully you can see that. Someone signal if not I'll carry on. So yes, welcome. Here we are in the exhibition space, and I want you to imagine you're in a gallery, because we have been thinking about that a lot, trying to make it seem like an exhibition and not just a website, which is hard because it is a website, but let's let's see what we can do. So as well as the exhibition space, we've also got our events, which you should know about since you're here. We've got a sort of interactive participatory area where you can build connections and sort of send us your feedback and see what other people are thinking about the exhibition, and that's part of our sort of collective learning experience. And we've got a reading room, which is further information about sort of the themes and the content of what's going on in the exhibition and around. So welcome to the exhibition. Here we've got the exhibition text, which I've talked you through. And here we are with our 12 contributions. So what we're going to do here is simply invite, we'll just go in the order that they appear here, which is, as Becky said, completely random. Like, as much as we want to build connections and sort of find themes and common threads between the work to sort of draw out key ideas or answer the sort of questions we're interested in, we also want you to do the same. We want to allow you that freedom to explore. So yeah, we're not going to do that today. That's for the coming webinars. So Vincenzo, if you're all right to start, I will share the screen and invite you to talk for 2 or 3 minutes about yourself and the work that you're bringing to the exhibition. Thanks.
Great, thanks Alice, and thanks everyone for joining today. Just wanted to start by saying a big thank you to the Extractivism team for putting together this amazing exhibition. It's been really great to be involved and to get to know all the other contributors as well. So I'm based in the north of Ireland, and my research looks at resistance to extractivism here in the north of Ireland, where there's a Canadian company, Dalradian Gold, trying to open a large gold mine and processing plant in the Sperrin Mountains. And I suppose the focus of my research is really looking at how resistance can counter this logic or mindset of extractivism. And to do that, I've been using participatory and visual methods in my project, such as photo voice and walking with participants in the landscape, engaging as an activist as well, and using a tool called countermapping. So yeah, the contribution to this exhibition just shares some of the stories and experiences and impressions of my ongoing project. And yeah, it was really made possible through the engagement with people in this landscape with the project. So it's really thanks to them. And I wanted to actually reflect on some of the words from another contributor to the exhibition, from Daniel's piece actually, which I thought were so beautifully put. And they said, the practice of challenging deep-seated extractivist mentalities can often seem an impossible task. And yet how can it be when the cracks of dominant models are filled with abundant dissent? And I thought this word, abundance is really key to what I was trying to show in my contribution, because I wanted to celebrate the abundance of solidarity and care and community that exists in this area, which has kind of been marked as kind of an extractive zone. And yeah, just there's so much else going on and different ways of knowing and relating to the world. And I thought that countermapping kind of created a space to reflect on that. And yeah, these are the things that have existed long before the threat of mining here, but also have been flourishing since the resistance movement has happened. So yeah, I've tried to create this little counter map on the website, and you can click through it and you can see different references to sacred sites and colonial legacies. You can see the resistance camp, different actions, an ancient pilgrimage route that the community have revived, the living landscape, the bog area seen as a living landscape, and different international solidarity links as well. So yeah, I hope you enjoy clicking through and seeing a little bit of what's happening in a very small mountain village, Greencastle, in the north of Ireland. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Vincenza. So from the north of Ireland to Indonesia now. Dewey, are you there? Are you happy to share?
Tejo or Dewi Chandraningrum?
Dewi Chandraningrum.
Oh, okay, thank you. Hi everyone. I am grateful to the team or the committee of the WIDO as well as Extractivism for inviting me for the exhibition. So it is really a time for me to learn again as well as unravel the fight of the women in defending their mountains. So in North Kendeng Mountain, it is in central Java, Indonesia, as you see. Several international salmon corporations have deforested and mined their way to profit and are met with this women resistance. And the North Kendeng community who call these places home have encountered both the disruption and destruction brought by these extractive industries. And my initiative is documenting their stories via paintings that now you can see from the screen. These women ecological defenders, and they used to sing Japanese song Kidung every time they protest against the salmon mining in defiance against the extractive industries. This Kidung is a chant, a worship as well as prayer dedicated to the giver of life, creator of the universe, which is the mother nature, who provide source of food, clean air, and the home for all human beings, animals, plants, and other sentient beings. A number of women since 2014 up to now led by Sukina, led by these 9 women that I painted. They are still alive now and are still fighting against international cement corporation there. These women are Sukina, Sutini, Karsupi, Ambarwati, Surani, Deni, Murtini, Ngadina, and Kiem, and many other young Kartini Kendeng who defending the mountains. And other influential women who are also in this painting is Kunarti and Paini. And Paini is at the front page of this my slide. Is the only women against the cement corporation in the lawsuit of the which is coming from the Western Europe. So I am grateful that the audience there can see our cause, can also support this cause. Thank you. Please offer to my.
Thanks so much, Dewey.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
Next up, unfortunately, Marilena Ribeiro can't join us today. She's busy lecturing, but I wanted to just introduce you to her work as well. She's a visual artist, photographer, who also was with us in the last Extracting Us exhibition. And so in this contribution, she's sort of expanding on some of the themes that she was looking at the impacts of hydroelectric projects. And in this really touching video that she's put together, she's building on her research in Brazil, where she's from, and working with this woman, Maria Piedade, and her family, who sort of were documenting at the time what it was like to be dispossessed from their home by the arrival of the hydroelectric dam, the hydro project, Belo Monte Dam in Brazil. Yeah, one that you need to watch next. It really gives an insight into what it's like to well, it's impossible to imagine what it's like to lose your home, but to regardless have a sense of being able to carry on and slowly find a way to overcome this and find solidarity and a way of making sense of the new sort of lives that have to be formed after these moments of dispossession because of extractivism. So I'll leave it at that. And invite Luce to introduce your work.
Hello, and thanks very much to the whole team for inviting me to the second iteration of the exhibition. I actually represent one half of a collaboration with this piece, whereas in the first exhibition I had contributed something from my own practice. But I'm an artist, collapsing environments and performance and sculpture is my work. I have a spatial inquiry encompassing writing, image and sound, and I use fieldwork, language and live event to explore precarity and temporality in a radical rethinking of our time on this planet. So I guess my project's more global, not so specific, but actually it affects everybody. I'm looking particularly at accelerationism, extractivism, post-industrial tourism, social movement, aggregate structures and material transformation. And this encompasses to make a commentary that actually addresses wealth inequality, economic governance, ecological degradation, environmental pollution and political engineering. The actual work comes from an idea of regolith, which is literally a rug of stone. It's the thin layer on which we build our lives. It's to remember that humans in the form of corporations and industries contribute a destabilizing effect across the world through extraction activities, whether mining materials or mining data. And Roisner and myself use this regolithic project to explore fragments, which are an ongoing meditation on cause and effect, and to open a poetic space for discourse and visual listening and a time for moving together. And the concept album will be released early this year, but we've contributed 2 preludes to the exhibition, which should give you sort of an introduction to for what's to come. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Luce. And now if I can invite Arabelle to introduce Toxic Waves too.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming to the opening. So my name is Arabelle Lebrusen. I'm a visual artist. This project really started from the necessity of understanding things that happen in the world. I think some of us have as a reference in a specific place, and I have a specific place, a disaster that happened in Minas Gerais in Brazil. It's about to be 3 years ago, where literally a big site just gave away, and there was a landslide, and that landslide killed many individuals. And I had this necessity, being in the West, of understanding why, how. My background is also in ethical jewelry. I've been campaigning for 15 years about sustainability in the jewelry industry. So anything that happens around mining was really touched me deeply. And I wanted, as an artist, to look at what is the other, what nature did here. Understanding, yes, I understand so many people died. What did we do to nature in order for that to happen? And as I was trying to understand this wave, this shape of a wave came to be. And I started thinking, is this wave helping me understand what happened over there? How can we get closer to those events happening thousands of miles away from us? So that question became bigger and bigger. And as an artist, I started questioning, can this help people? How can we get closer to those events? And that question became a fellowship in the University of Brighton. So I am doing this fellowship at the center with the question of, can art making through embodied thinking activate our empathy at a deeper and more instinct level than our rational understanding of events? And it was that necessity of closing the gap between me in the West and what happened really far away from me, but it was also me. Is this nature is also me, I'm also nature, what happened there? And try to shift the thinking from the other, that nature is not us, and this dichotomy of how we're understanding everything. So this performance came to be. This will be the second time I will be running it online. So I invite everyone to come and join us. It's a short performance where I will asking people to draw a wave. It doesn't have to be big like you're seeing on the screen. It can also be in small on a piece of paper. I had the opportunity the first time I performed it to do it large, and it was an incredible experience. So I hope that the second time we have that incredible experience online, share with all of us, and explore what happens when you add rhythm and then you create a space. What are we doing? How are we activating that space? And how this relates to care and to all the subjects that the exhibition is talking about. So thank you very much. That's me for now.
Thanks so much, Arabelle. And just to add, this performance that you were mentioning will be part of the embodiment webinar, which we'll be having at this time next week. We'll give another shout out and more details at the end to add some more details for that. Have we got Dewey from JKPP here? I'm not sure that we do. No, in which case I'll introduce. I find this a really interesting contribution because it sort of challenges what we think about when we think about what is art and what is creativity, because what we've actually got in this exhibit is some examples of participatory mapping. Oh no, they're not popping up. I've got a million tabs open, that's probably why. But what we have in this project is a community who is at risk of being evicted because of a tourism development plan in an island in Indonesia. And they came together with NGOs and various organisations to make a counterclaim and to say, actually, the way that we've been using this land for a really long time, traditional fishing, is how the land should be used. So it's a success story, actually, of how extractive tourism could be overcome, and an interesting way of thinking about creativity and community and agency, which managed to resist extractivism. And JKPP is one of those organisations involved in supporting that project. Okay, and now Daniel, if you'd like to introduce your work, that would be wonderful.
Thanks so much, Alice. And just first, some words of gratitude. Huge thank you to the Extracting Us Collective, putting out any work into the world 2 years into the pandemic. It takes a lot of sweat, and so lots of love and just appreciation for the incredible work you've done together. And it's such an honor to be here with such amazing contributors that I'm learning from and learn from constantly. This tiny offering is a small fragment of practices of care in the land of Udmurtia, the territory of the Udmurt people in Russia. And I came to this both as part of my work as a campaigner, my work on just transitions and ecological transitions. And one big obstacle that we face is that extractivism has a legacy in shaping even the way we think about alternatives. Siti said it really beautifully about moving away from spectacularized thinking. We almost think that alternatives have to be at the scale of extractive impositions, that we need to have something as big as the mine, something as big as the plantation in order to replace it. And so that often lets us not see what's available in front of us. All the relationships of care that are in our own families, that are in our communities, that are in the landscapes around us. And so reckoning with that unbias in me, and also writing a love letter to my my beloved grandmother of blessed memory, who passed away 2 years ago, was also reckoning with there were so many practices of care and extractivism in my own family and in the landscape that gave my family a home for more than 60 years, which is Udmurtia. And so in Russia, in the whole former Soviet space, the economy has been, through historical processes, made to be indistinguishable from extractivism. There are so many territories across the country who've been internally colonized, and to the point where now it's very, very hard for people to imagine what an economy looks like away from big-scale extractive practices. Yet all around the country are so many examples of small-scale allotment farming that form a huge part of the countries and the territory and the landscapes on food sovereignty. And so reckoning with my grandma's and my granddad's own allotment, the allotments around them, and what that meant in a context of intense sand mining and oil extraction and timber logging and ecological devastation is what my piece, my poetic essay and exploration is about. And I'll just close it by just reading some of the last lines that I think summarize what the piece is trying to convey, which is: solutions, revolutions, innovations, these synonyms of distance suggest that the world we want is over there, over the horizon, alive only in what will come. But often the very things we dream of are here. It's a matter of turning toward them or returning toward them. The places where we are possible are not found on maps, but on compasses, through compasses. These compasses we build, these compasses we retrieve, these compasses we become. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks so much, Daniel, for those really, really heartfelt words. Yeah, and beautifully put expressions. Unfortunately, Albertus, or Vembry as we know him, is off grid at the moment. But Mai, if that's all right with you, Mai is more familiar with his work in context, so I'll ask Mai to introduce his photographic work for us.
Thank you, Alice. Yeah, I like the title, "In the Forest We Believe." It's kind of express the area of the biggest gold mine in Indonesia, which is also the oldest mine. Even it's signs the contract before we have Indonesian have a mining regulation. So this company kind of guiding all the contract of work of Indonesian mining operation until now. So I met Fembry in 2015 or 16 in one of in Kalimantan. Fembry is a freelance photojournalist and visual storyteller who focus in the Papua. Papua is part of Indonesians that's actually asked for independence at the moment. His photo story Fragments of Papua, which a series photo about the community situation around Freeport mine, dumping waste in Papua. So through the photo story, he explains the everyday activities on how people practicing care and depend on the forest despite the area is polluted and destroyed by gold mines since 1970s. So he brings how people relate with the river, but also the everyday life of the people around the river. Yeah, and also how people surrounding by the tailing waste. The company is like dumping 200,000 tons of tailing every day to the ocean, to the river, and go to the ocean. Thank you, Alice.
Thanks so much, Mai. Brilliant. And it's a really interesting story there as well, brought in the COVID context, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Story. And now we're off to Sweden. Karen will introduce her work to us.
Thank you so much, Alice, and thank you for the rest of the team, Extracting Us Collective. Thank you so much for launching this. It's a great initiative. My name is Karin Edstedt and I live in Malmö, Sweden, and it's snowing here right now, so you might hear some wind in the background. I did this embroidery as an attempt to explore political ecology in the global north. And I did it as a summary of my master thesis because I was so busy in my mind when writing the summary. I had to embroider it because I used to work with textiles to let go of my frustration and also like express political activism in a different way. So I use textiles for that. I work as an educator and a facilitator, and I try to encourage my students to use art and textiles as much as they can to express their political frustration as well. So basically here you see the summary of my thesis, which is an exploration of environmental justice theory on a case in northern Sweden, Sápmi, where there's a copper mine by the company Boliden. They want to launch a copper mine in this area. And what's interesting about this area is that in 1930s, the same company were actually having a mine there for copper. And when it was not profitable anymore, they closed it down. So this community has been living with the pollution from that old mine in almost 100 years. And now the same company wants to explore and expand a new mine in the same area. So this is basically the complications for environmental justice that will happen if a mine comes to Laver, which is the name of the work. So you can see the mining machines and how the Sami grazing areas are cut out. So you see the reindeers down there and how they cannot use their usual migration path to search for winter grazing paths. So it will definitely mostly affect the Sami communities and Sami culture in this particular area. And also, of course, biological diversity will be very much affected while the wealth is transformed or transmitted into the city. Yeah, so those are the complications. And I would like to highlight, since we're here in the national setting, that this case is now up to the Swedish government to decide if they're let to have a mine there. So it's not decided yet if the mine can actually come to Laver. And the same goes for another very much highlighted case in Gallok. It's another mine in the Jokkmokk area in Sweden, which is very, very on top of the news in Sweden right now, because the decision from the new government will come in March. So please have a heads up on that and sign any campaigns you can against it, because it will also very much affect Sami rights and indigenous rights in Sweden, Sápmi. So please have a look out for that one. We're doing everything we can to campaign against these two mines, and yeah, trying to do that. So thank you. That was all for me.
Thank you so much for the beautiful work and also the campaigning work, which is so important. And the reminder as well to show everyone that on each of these artist pages, we've also got a solidarity area where we've invited the artists to share links. So here, for instance, you can sign up to the campaign. On other pages, you can find out more about the different sort of NGOs and organizations and campaign groups for all of these cases that you're hearing about. So yes, good heads up that we're here to build solidarity as well as ask interesting questions. Okay, Sandra, are you here? I think you are, aren't you, to introduce your work? Amazing. Here we are.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it, and thanks for zooming in, and it's good to meet the other contributors. It's very early here and the connection is not so good, so I'll keep my video off for now. Yeah, so I'm contributing again a 6 video loops installation called Bidon Monde, and yeah, if we zoom down, I think we can already see it. Thank you, Alice. Yeah, and it's about the different ways, or maybe the 7 lives or afterlives of palm oil plastic canisters and how they're reused in the Sine Saloum Delta in Senegal. And what you would see is the ways they're reused, and what you would hear in the videos is the bit of the history of these canisters. You'll hear logging, you'll hear palm oil commercials, etc. So it's a bit of a twofold or two temporalities, videos in one. And you can go through them in sort of a cyclical way. Bidonmonde relates to the term bidonville, a French term that has been formed around Morocco and Tunisia and Algeria in the 1930s, and for places where people made houses from scrap materials. So it's a bit of a reference to this term that is very problematic and sort of been used to space people out and sort of eliminate them as other. Anyway, this is a few thoughts, and just try it out maybe. Thanks.
Thanks, Sandra. Yeah, this is a fun one to explore different ways of viewing it, isn't it? You can have them all playing at once or one at a time. Yeah. You can imagine it in a gallery being really overwhelming almost. Chesney, I don't think is here. Correct me if I'm wrong. Then I shall introduce the work. Most likely Chesney is busy doing important activist work. Chesney is from Hull in the UK, and their work explores the sort of everyday lives really, and alternatives that are being built by people up the line, which is the name of the work, of the proposed HS2, which is a high-speed railway here in England, where I am, from London to the north of England. And they've already started work on it, going through a lot of sort of protected woodlands, and that's having a lot of effects on communities along the line. But also along the line, in a great English tradition, we have lots of protest camps. And Chesney has spent some time in these camps, sort of doing sketches and fabric collages based on these sketches. So if you have a chance to look through these, you'll see these really beautiful observations of everyday life, not only sketches, but sometimes also incorporating bits of conversation, observations. Here we've got, for instance, workshop notes that sort of depict both the joys and the struggles of trying to live in a space which is trying to do things differently, and not only say no to a project, but say yes to something else and begin to practice what it's like to live in an alternative way. So we've got pictures here of sketches, of protest camps, and then further up the line we have sketches from houseboat dwellers and how they've been impacted by sort of these problems of pollution and the landscape and community changes arising from the coming railway. And finally, some fabric collages based on some of the original sketches. Oh goodness, website's getting a bit glitchy. And we'll head back. Oh dear. And next up was I apologize for my screen. I'm going to stop sharing if that's all right.
Yeah, it's okay. My work is actually collaboration with Sarah Agustio. I think she is here at the moment. Maybe she can open the screen. Hi, Sarah. Sarah from East Kalimantan. Me in Indonesia and me based in Germany at the moment. I'm PhD student at University of Passau, part of WIGO research network. So it's actually continuity of try to discuss with myself and have conversation with Sarah about how actually we discuss about this also in the theme about in between spaces, how to continuity of reflect on the Balian work duty in the central Kalimantan. Kalimantan is the third biggest islands in the world, which is has long time colonial experiences with the different of extractive this project. This serial of pictures is actually challenge us to think, because usually we always think about extractivism, something that big things, massive. So it's kind of a continuity to challenge us from previous exhibition, how to bring you know, not extractive everyday activities, kind of, for example, how women winemakers fermenting the rice as a part of providing material for the ritual, for example, and how the farmers kind of harvesting, but imagining the rice field is a river, because this is the community which who live around the river in Kalimantan, but also how the economics that people think it's kind of alternative, but also destroyed by extractivism. We call durian forests. I don't know if you know about that, but it is kind of the various activities around the river that practicing by indigenous people as part of practicing care and also maintaining their life in the extractive landscape and frontier of resources. That's actually the general pictures of my contribution with Sarah Agustio. Thanks, Alice.
Thanks, Mo, for that. Sorry about the technical difficulties at my end. I think I'm finally pushing my laptop to its limits. But thanks for sharing anyway, Mo. So that's all our wonderful contributors. How amazing is that? So many sort of connections flying around my head. I don't know if you're the same, all these sort of different ways of thinking about things and framing things and finding things in common, or maybe even contradictions. And I'm really looking forward to the next few weeks and the events that we are having together. Now I'm going to pass to Becky, that's right, isn't it, who's going to introduce you to the reading room, which is just another one of the areas of our exhibition space. That's right, isn't it? Do you want me to try to share screen?
Yeah, thank you, Alice. Yeah, if you can. But thank you also to everybody, to those who are putting some commentary into the chat. And we will come back to some of the specific questions there. But thank you very much for the reflections and thoughts so far. Do feel free to keep sharing. As Alice is maybe having some issues with screen sharing the website, I'll just introduce something about you probably saw right at the start of our launch. She showed you the connections to a couple of spaces. We were trying to sort of recreate this sense of coming into a gallery, and the reading room is one of those spaces that we want to use as part of the exhibition, and to use it in quite an iterative way. So the reading room is really a resource space where what we're doing and building as we go along is where we're going to be sharing some of the key ideas and concepts that underpin the exhibition, and you'll be able to see now a couple of those sorts of resources that are there. So there's a link, first of all, to the blogs that have been written in response to the previous exhibition, the Extracting Us exhibition, but also you'll be able to have a look at the archive from Extracting Us. So if you were kind of inspired by some of the things that Mai was talking about right at the start, about the journey to where we are now, then the resource room, the reading room, is somewhere where you can dive in and look back at the journey and where we've come from. The other thing that's in that room are blogs, and we will be adding to those as we go along. And that's something that will give a sort of dynamic to the space. But just as all good reading rooms are, they're really a space where you can sit down and kind of dive into some of the kind of core themes underpinning the exhibition. So we've got some slightly delving deeper into some discussions around concepts like extractivism, unpicking how we're understanding that and pointing towards some things that have inspired us as we've been reading. So very much about, who were the sort of shoulders on who we're standing, of people who've been writing about this before, and making connections beyond the exhibition with other people writing and thinking in these areas. Feminist political ecology is another area. Environmental feminisms, resistance, and so we'd encourage people to kind of visit these, but also to keep returning, because this is an area that we'll be building up as we share our connections, as we share our discussions and our learnings as we go on. So I'm going to turn us now to the second of those rooms that we mentioned on the website, which is the connections room. Alice, I don't know if you want to say something about the connections room. One of us can maybe try and share our screen. If you can't, let me see.
Yeah, sorry, my screen is flashing and doing very alarming things, so I'm not going to push it too far. But yeah, feel free. Might put the link in the chat there, and you can explore in your own time. Although that being said, the connections room is not working quite perfectly just yet, but that's fine, because it gives you lots of time to explore the exhibition and make those connections in your own time. So what we're sort of inviting you to do in this room is to ask yourself, okay, so how do you see that these contributions are connected? And that can be in any way that is meaningful for you. Maybe you've already got questions that you're thinking through in your research or activism or arts practice, or just you're interested in. And you can not only draw connections between the artworks, but also between your own experiences. So what will be there is a sort of drag and drop function where you can see a little image representing each of our contributions, some of their artwork, and then you can sort of draw manually connections between them. You can add little notes to explain why you're drawing those connections, and you can also upload your own images and add those into the mix as well. Then we're inviting you to download them and email them to us. And in the meantime, if you do have any other sorts of feedback or ideas, or it gets you excited about something, please do let us know. We've got this blog space, and we're really happy to have anyone sort of write any reflections from our events, or from your engagement with the exhibition. Yeah, so do explore that. There's some sort of guiding questions there as well, just to get you thinking about how things relate to each other, or maybe sort of relate in surprising ways, or there are juxtapositions or things that don't quite connect for whatever reason it is. Those are also really interesting to explore as well. Yes, and then we'll be sort of showing them all in a gallery space, so you can explore those too. Oh, thanks, Deanne. Deanne's managed to share it. So yeah, this is the connections room, and if you press Control-, then you can sort of see a more zoomed out view and see all the pictures which are there for you to drag around and play with. It's a little bit glitchy right now, but we are working on that and excited to see yeah, where this goes. And that's sort of, you often have this at exhibitions, don't you, these sort of boards with post-its on where you can write a little note. So it doesn't have to be anything particularly insightful or a revelation of any sort, but yeah, we're looking forward to seeing what you have for us there. Okay, and I think now we are running very much to time, which means we have plenty of time for Q&A from the audience. or from the contributors, which Mai is going to facilitate for us.
Thanks, Alice. Yes, we now have time for the question and answer. If you have a question, please you can put on the chat, or you can even raise your hands. So the contributor and us will give a response on it.
Mai, there was a question in the chat that came in earlier on about whether there will be more opportunities to keep growing the exhibition.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Is anyone want to respond? Which one is it? Okay. The diversity of contributions, richness of reflection, and collective vision conveyed here are so powerful. Huge congratulations to all. Will there be more opportunities to keep growing the exhibit? Alice, Becky, or the contributor also can respond on this. Please feel free.
This is a question we keep avoiding, isn't it? Because we're all sort of finishing up our PhDs this year and projects come to an end. But it's also so exciting to see everyone's work and how it comes together. So it's still very much an open question. And something else we've sort of been thinking about as well is, so we've got the few of us who are the Extracting Us collective who've been doing this sort of behind the scenes curation and inviting people in, but we're by no means have closed doors. So that's another thing to think about if people were interested in sort of taking a more active role in bringing things together and seeing what happens next. Then it's not necessarily closed. And also, if anyone has sort of their own work that they think corresponds really well to the exhibition, we could definitely feature that in a blog post and sort of engage that and have that in conversation with the works that are already in the exhibition. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what you have in mind there.
Becky, do you want to add?
No, I just would echo Alice, because there are various pathways for sharing work that others are doing, and certainly over the next few weeks when we'll be having the webinars, that will be a chance also for people to kind of come along and share some of the things that they're working on, where those relate, definitely. So yeah, really excited to know that this is sort of prompting people to connect. That was kind of the point. We really wanted to build connections, so that's really good to hear.
Yes, just remind what Becky mentioned. We still have a kind of 3 webinar and 1 closing meeting. We have different off topics, and one of exciting is Dewi Chandraningrum also will present with the Kendeng Women's, who present on her painting in the last the third of a webinar.
Yeah, Arabelle, go ahead.
And I was thinking, I'm one of the participants. Usually you have an opening and then people go into sides and then people get together in 2s or 3s and suddenly you start having conversations. I personally don't know all the participants, so it has been great to have conversations, for example, yesterday with Luz one-to-one about even her own work or my work. And I just wonder if there would be a space on those sessions that maybe we can even break out in groups, like small groups, so that there is more conversations, because sometimes it feels a bit overwhelming to speak to 30 people or to 20 people. And I just wonder if we could generate that. We can make a space for smaller groups of people randomly even coming together, like in an exhibition that you just get a glass of wine and just get close to someone and you start talking about something random. And I just wonder if there would be maybe time for that. I just thought about it. I just thought, right, this is an opening. We're going to make more events as a And how can we create these random connections sometimes that without that smaller space wouldn't happen?
I like random connection. Becky or Alice want to respond about it, Diane?
I was just looking now if I have breakout rooms, but I'm not sure we've got that in this version of Zoom, unfortunately, because that's the sort of thing that we could do. Yeah, we were thinking about that a lot, actually, and like something that we've experienced a lot in these sort of online events as well, is that feeling of you go to something and it's really amazing and it's really, or it can be really emotional and sort of heavy, the sort of things that people are sharing, and then it's over and your family's in the room and you're making a cup of tea and there's none of that decompression either. So yeah, we really value that as an idea. We can have a think about how to incorporate that into the the exhibition events.
Yeah, I think we've got plenty of scope. We can certainly use the breakout rooms, and one of the things with breakout rooms is you can make them super random, where you have no idea who you're going to be thrown into a room with. So there's I think we can certainly work with that. It would be really great to do that. And yeah, I think that as Declan has put in the chat, breakout rooms can be really, and Alona as well. Let's put that as on the action points for what we take forward from this. So thanks very much for the feedback and ideas.
Yeah. For breakout room.
Do we want to try? Should we experiment right now? Do people have time to do that?
We still have 16 minutes and 3 minutes for closing.
I wondered if first I might pass back to Arabelle and Lise to maybe say a few words about the events next week on the theme of embodiment, just while I sort of sort out those practicalities of the breakout rooms and maybe pop some questions in the chat. If I can pass to you to introduce us to next week's activities or instructions for next week.
Luz, please.
Yes, well, we had a good discussion yesterday about what we might how we might contribute to the theme of embodiment, but it's more about presenting something that that then we can discuss as part of the webinar. You know, following that, there are several ideas in the theme, and these I think would be sort of brought out in a conversation that happens after our presentations. Because Arabelle, you're going to give a performance which is participatory, and I will give a performance that is more a delivery of a poetic script. So we will sort of blend these two contributions together, and then we can unpack what embodiment in this extractive process is kind of all about in that session, in a nutshell.
So we want everyone to be there. Please come. It's going to be great. And hopefully we create that space that we activate loads and loads and loads of things. And at the end, we'll have this wonderful dust, and that we'll see how that kind of falls and kind of influence all of you. So we're really looking forward to share and to hear and to activate and yeah, come and don't miss it, because we need people. Without people, we can't do this. So be there.
Actually, yes, to add that actually Arabelle and myself only met yesterday for the first time, you know, so this exhibition has inspired, you know, a new connection, and we have lots of things in common with our practices as well as lots of differences, which is always room to explore, which is lovely. And our sort of common conversation came down to the idea of dust. So this is where it kind of begins. It begins in the dust, and then we can see where it goes.
I'm so excited to see this unfold, and we're instructed to bring as big a paper as we can and as sort of messy charcoal as we can. Is that right?
Yes, but not only. So, I don't want to be restrictive. We can draw with whatever we have. So yeah, it's about embodiment. So sometimes scale, it does increase the experience, but I would probably do it at small this time. So small is also fine. Just something that you can draw with and a paper and just some time to have a shared experience.
Super. Okay, I've figured out the breakout rooms. You'll be glad to hear. 3 or 4 people in each room, and I thought we'd maybe take 5 minutes just to share something that was exciting or new, or just that thing that will stay in your head. I think that's all that we need to share right now, unless anyone has another idea. Should we go for that? Great. Let's see what happens. See you back in and sort of, should we go for 25 past? So we'll have sort of 7 minutes to have a little conversation. Okay, enjoy. Is anyone left in this room with me?
Into the events.
I think that's everyone back in the room now. I think we lost a few on the way, but that's fine.
Right. I'm Mazine.
Thanks, Alice, for doing that. That was really great.
Good. I was just here in the waiting room. So how was that? What happened? Does anyone want to share any feedback or put anything in the chat to share what happened?
Daniel, do you want to say your last point? That was really lovely. The takeaway.
It was like a shared point. I think the 3 of us are just reflecting on the beauty of different backgrounds coming together, whether it's academia or activism or art, and how different vocabularies, different techniques help us become more fluent in talking about these really messy and complex and violent and difficult and beautiful things. So just a defense and a justification of the importance of bringing folks from different backgrounds together.
Thanks. Oh, and thanks for your comment in the chat, Alona. Yeah, it was funny looking at who was grouped with who. And I knew some people knew each other and some people knew no one in the rooms. So that must have been interesting. feel like maybe we should leave with your words as the closing words then, Daniel. Who did you say? Unless anyone else wants to add anything. No, okay, then I'll just say thank you to everyone so much for being here, for staying through to the end, sharing your work, being active listeners. And I really look forward to seeing you all next week at the same time. So bye from us.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. I don't know if we needed to debrief or anything.